This is Tar Heel Talk, an in-depth look at the issues and people making news in North Carolina. Here's your host, Sonia Williams.
Today's guest brings the issues of infertility and surrogacy to the forefront in her novel, Sister Surrogate. It's a story that involves three sisters, a baby, and lots of family drama. And joining me now to tell us more about this book is author Lachelle Weaver. Lachelle, welcome to Tar Heel Talk.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show to talk about my new book.
Okay. Now, before we talk about the book, I'd like for our viewers to get to know you a little bit better. You are a native of Durham.
Yes, born and raised in Durham. I attended high school at Hillside, class of 93. And then I stayed in North Carolina to go to NC State to get a English degree because I knew I wanted to write. So I've been in Durham all my life.
Okay. Well, you talked about, knowing all of your life that you wanted to write. When you think back over your childhood experiences and maybe some influences, at what point did you say, yes, I have a gift and this is what I want to do?
As a child, I was an avid reader. I spent a lot of time in the library, and I was a big fan of Judy Blume. And so I knew then I wanted to write, not like her, but that's what sparked my interest in writing, is just my love for books and reading.
And I understand that maybe some encouragement from a teacher also
Definitely.
helped.
I wrote my first manuscript in 5th grade. I had a teacher, Miss Churchill, and she read it and loved it. So I guess you can say she was my first reviewer, book reviewer. And so just her encouragement, and just over time, over the years, writing, just getting encouragement from, teachers and professors, I said, this is something I want to do, permanently.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the book, Sister Surrogate, because you do address a lot of different issues that aren't typically talked about. So just give us an overview of the storyline.
So Sister Surrogate, it follows three sisters, Bridget, Ivy, and Savannah. And Savannah is the youngest sister, and she's diagnosed with cervical cancer. Well, at the time she's diagnosed, she's newly married and she's ready to start a family. And so, of course, the cervical cancer diagnosis, it compromises her fertility. And so one of her sisters steps up to become her surrogate, but it doesn't create it's not a happy occasion for everybody in the family. It creates a whole lot of family drama.
Now, I like the fact that in the book, you're talking about the characters and the sisters. They're all successful and leaders in their various careers. So tell us a little bit more about Savannah, Ivy, and Bridget.
Savannah, she's a not a high school, but she's an elementary school principal. Bridget, she owns her own bakery, and Ivy, she's a celebrity makeup artist. And so I love to write characters that are positive, career-driven, but they're also, struggling like a lot of women to maintain a balance with family and, friends and, just in their careers. So.
And there are a lot of references to North Carolina locations in the book.
Yeah, the book actually takes place in Charlotte, which I didn't know really much about. I have a friend that lives in Charlotte, and so and that's kind of where the location, I wanted the location to be, but I do reference Durham and some other cities.
Right. When you talk about coming up with ideas and inspiration to write books, what was the inspiration for you? Where did you get this idea to talk about infertility and surrogacy?
Well, the idea for surrogacy came actually with the idea about the sister with cervical cancer. I was flipping through an ad in a magazine some years ago. It was about cervical cancer, and it featured three sisters, which they were Caucasian sisters. And I said I wanted to write this story. The youngest sister, just like Savannah, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And I said, well, I wanted to write this story with African American sisters, and the twist would be surrogacy, since it's not often talked about in our community.
Right.
And so that's where the idea came from.
So you mentioned this is not something that is typically talked about in the African American community, or it hasn't been traditionally. What types of conversations do you hope are generated as a result of this book?
That infertility is not anything to be ashamed about. I mean, in fact, a lot of African American women are, they're more than likely to be diagnosed, well, not diagnosed, but suffer from infertility. And then surrogacy is an option that's not often, sought out, but I mean, it is an option, and, for us, if that's what we choose to go.
So just creating a
dialogue.
And that awareness. How can people find out more information about your books?
You can go to my website, LachelleWeaverWrites.com, and on Amazon and BrownGirlsBooks.com.
And you mentioned Brown Girls Books. That is, you've written for them before as well.
My first work was published through Brown Girls Books. It was an anthology called The Dating Game, where I became a first-time published author. My story is called We Ain't the Huxtables. And it was also about a career woman who was trying to find love. And then she reconnected with a high school sweetheart. And that's, you have to read more about their story in that book.
Right, it sounds very interesting. So that was part of a series of short stories?
It was an anthology. It was called The Dating Game. So it kind of focused on stories surrounding dating and finding love.
Very interesting. Two hot topics for all the single ladies out there. We're going to take a break, and we'll talk more in just a minute. Okay. We'll be back with more on Sister Surrogate after these messages. My guest today is Durham native Lachelle Weaver. We're here discussing her debut novel, Sister Surrogate. It's a story that raises the issues of infertility and surrogacy. Now, Lachelle, before the break, we were talking a little bit about the inspiration behind the story. You saw an ad in a magazine that talked about cervical cancer. How did that inspire you to take that issue and kind of flesh it out into a novel? It's an important issue, and like you were saying, that it's one that people don't talk about often.
Right. I just wanted to shed light on it because we are, as as an African American woman, we are kind of diagnosed with it at higher rates. And so I wanted to, shed light on it, and just for us to go out and, make sure we're getting because I also discussed HPV, which is main cause of cervical cancer. So just to make us aware of, things that can affect us, and to make sure we go out and, get our annual exams and, things like that.
I can imagine that there was a great deal of research that you had to do in order to at least highlight some of the medical aspects of the story. Tell us a little bit about your research work.
Well, I relied heavily on my OBGYN. My name is Heather Falter. She's at our Harris Smith OBGYN. I relied heavily on her expertise. And I also talked to a classmate of mine, an ex-classmate of mine that had actually battled cervical cancer. So she was really gracious enough to, give me the information I needed to write Savannah's story accurately.
And I know you've given us the overview of the book, but there were some underlying themes, I think, outside of the issue of infertility and surrogacy, but just a family and of just being there for each other. What are some of those themes that you hope your readers get from your story?
Yeah, like you said, family, sisterhood. We saw that the sisters, like many, they go through challenges, but they always manage to come together in times of need. So that's definitely something I like to write about, friendships and, just topics like that.
When you think about other projects and what's on the horizon, what are some of the things that you are working on now and hope to continue?
Right now I'm trying to finish up a holiday story. I'm not sure if it's going to go to print because it's maybe a little bit too late for now, but it's definitely something I can, release next year. And it's also just kind of taps into different family dynamics also. And I also like to finish a full novel on the story I had in The Dating Game. So I'm working on turning that into a full novel.
Okay. So you've got quite a few projects going on.
Yeah.
Your holiday story, that could be something for next year. Any thoughts on translating that book either on a small screen or a larger screen?
I hope so one day to, see something I wrote on a big screen. That's always a goal, or a dream of a writer, to just kind of see something you did in print to go on a big screen. So I would definitely love to see that in the future.
When you talk about all the work that you have going on and the process that it takes, because I think a lot of people don't realize all the work that it takes to have a novel published, can you kind of walk us through your personal literary journey?
My journey started as a published author maybe a year ago, like I said, with the anthology, the Dating Game anthology. But even before then, I was always, just attending book signings of my favorite authors, just kind of getting information from them and, going to writing workshops and, just always doing, even now as I'm published, just, continue to hone the craft. And so I submitted a short story to call for an anthology, and it was selected out of, I think, like 400 submissions or something like that. So I was like one out of 16 other girls in the story, and that's where my journey started. And then from there, I was offered a book deal to write for Brown Girls Books, and so that's where Sister Surrogate came about.
Now tell us a little more about Brown Girl Books, because that's an interesting concept in and of itself.
Brown Girls Books, and a lot of people think it's just women, black women, but we have male authors, we have white authors, but it's headed by two best-selling authors, award-winning authors, Victoria Christopher Murray and Rashonda Tate Billingsley. And so I think it's maybe 2 or 3 years in the making, and they have a roster full of talented authors.
And so if you could share a bit of advice with someone who might be interested in writing a book and having it published, where should they start?
I would just say start with, because I collect a lot of craft books, start there, and then again, just go to some of your local book signings of your favorite authors and just kind of see what they're doing. And also, a lot of them are, very helpful when it comes to offering information on, how you can, start out. And so I definitely suggest doing that, and just reaching out to them on social media, because just sparking conversations with them and letting them know you're interested, and just kind of staying present,
right,
or staying out there in their view.
And I can imagine, having a mentor would be extremely important as well.
Definitely.
And you are on social media.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm
on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter.
Okay. And you also write a blog, or do you do any type of blogging?
No, I haven't too much did a lot of blogging. I'm still kind of learning about it, but it is something I like to do on a national level. So I'm kind of now researching that and taking courses to learn a little bit more about that too.
We're going to take another break and we'll talk more in just a minute.
All right, thank you.
Don't go away. Tar Heel Talk will continue after these messages. Welcome back to Tar Heel Talk. I'm Sonia Williams. My guest today is Durham native and author Lachelle Weaver. Her debut novel, Sister Surrogate, tackles the issues of infertility and surrogacy. Lachelle, before the break, you were telling us a little bit about the inspiration for this novel. Give us a recap of the novel for the viewers who may just be joining us.
Well, one of the issues that I tackle is cervical cancer, which is a very sensitive topic, which is why I was very wanted to make sure that I did the research since it's such a sensitive topic. And I talked with my OBGYN and a high school classmate who had actually battled cervical cancer. And like I said, she was gracious enough to, give me the information I needed, to write Savannah's story accurately. And, she was telling me how, it kind of brought back those emotions from, when she was diagnosed and, going through treatment. So, and that's what I felt in just doing the research. Sometimes it was kind of emotionally draining, just kind of reading the different stories, about, women, being diagnosed and going through treatment and, and just trying to live as normal life as possible.
That emotional roller coaster that we can experience and that we saw or that we see in the book with Savannah, who is the youngest of the three sisters, who's been diagnosed and then later deals with infertility.
Right.
So what were some of the challenges you faced in writing this novel and getting it all together?
I guess I could say just the different revisions it had to go through. I say, and again, because I was tackling such, sensitive topics, with infertility and surrogacy, and which, of course, I didn't know a lot about, but just kind of finding the research, and specifically with African American women, because again, it's not a topic that's really talked about, and it was really hard in finding information, and as a matter of fact, someone reached out to me later on that said they was part of a African American surrogacy group and I was like, I think I may need to talk to y'all for a sequel, but yeah, so just mainly the research and, just, because I think sometimes I was doing a lot of research, like over-researching, but again, I just wanted to make sure I was, providing accurate information.
And this has no doubt sparked conversation
Definitely.
On the whole issue of surrogacy, and that being an option for a couple who may desire a child and not be able to conceive.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It definitely has sparked all kinds of debates, and it's just been interesting to see the feedback, from just coworkers and, friends. And I've had a variety of, readers of all, backgrounds, and not just women. It's been particularly interesting to hear the male, perception about the book. So it definitely sparked a lot of conversations, and as an author, that's what I always strive to do is, first entertain and then spark discussions.
Who are some of your favorite authors?
I don't want to leave anybody out, but I'll have to say definitely number one, her name is Kimberly Lawson Roby. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. But she definitely was my inspiration to write in the contemporary women's genre. And I have to say Victoria Christopher Murray and Rashonda Tate Billingsley, they're also my publishers. But they're also excellent writers and storytellers. And Jacqueline Thomas, she's local too, but she's also an award-winning best-selling author of Christian fiction novels, and she was definitely a mentor in writing this book. She was the one that offered me the deal when she was part of Brown Girls Books. So I've had a lot of great, mentors and influences for writing.
now that you see the positive impact that having a mentor can have on a budding writer, any plans on being a mentor to someone else?
To some degree, I've already have kind of stepped in those shoes. I mean, a lot of people have come to me now. Can you read my story? You know, they're going to submit something, or, you know. So I've definitely kind of taken on that role, and it's a great feeling to be able to help somebody else out.
Absolutely.
Doing something you love to do.
When you think about the issues that are handled, the sensitive issues that are discussed in Sister Surrogate, and it is meant to be entertaining. It's not, you know, it's not something that is fact in terms of the storyline itself. What do you hope that readers can take away from this book? I'm sure there are several lessons, but what are some of the things that you hope they can take away from the story?
Again, just, you know, having those conversations, you know, about, you know, whatever, you know, sensitive topic that, you know, you might go through. And, you know, family, you know, sisterhood is definitely a major theme in the book. Just kind of, you know, we all go through our issues with family, but just kind of how we come together in the end is what's important.
Definitely a lot of different messages in the book. You mentioned some feedback that you've gotten from readers. I'm interested to hear some of the feedback that you've gotten so far.
They like the complexity of the characters, because in the beginning you might have been rooting for one particular character, but by the end, you know, you didn't particularly like that character, or, you know. I had a mother-in-law that everybody loved to hate in the story, definitely. And just being able to debate, you know, the whole topic of the surrogacy.
Right.
Like, you know, if your wife or a family member came to you and said, you know, well, I'm gonna carry my family member's child, you know, how you would react. And I've heard a whole lot of different debates, you know, as far as that's concerned.
That added a whole another element to the story, by the sister being the surrogate.
Right.
Where can people find your book? How can they purchase it?
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Kobo. You can also get it from my website, LachelleWeaverWrites.com, or Brown Girls Books.
Okay, so lots of different ways. And how much is it? How much?
I think for ebook it's like under $4. And the paperback is $12.
Okay, so extremely affordable, a great read. I'm not done yet, so I'm not going to ask you too many details. I can't wait to see how the story ends, but certainly very entertaining.
A lot of twists and turns in there.
Oh, I cannot wait to finish reading it. I'm well on my way, but thank you so much for bringing attention to important issues that aren't traditionally talked about, but also doing it in an entertaining way that engages the reader throughout. So we certainly thank you for taking the time to share your work with us, and thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right. That's it for this week's Tar Heel Talk. To comment on this or other episodes of the show, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, or you can send us a message or an email to tarheeltalk@fox50.com. I'm Sonia Williams. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next week.